So what will I like kick off with the chat sheet and see where it goes?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. You got
Yeah.
any words of wisdom?
Right now?
Yeah.
No.
Okay then. So I mean, what? Yeah, basically kicks off from where we were, from where what I was just saying about neoliberalism and capitalist realism. The links between the how if neoliberalism was to bring it back to it as a burgeoning um, political articulation. I think we touched on this in the last video. Like before that point, it was something that occurred, or that was sort of born 100 years ago in, actually, here's this country thing again, Switzerland, in Geneva maybe. And the group of men talking about their ideas, hashing it out, getting a sort of a framework and a map work for neoliberalism on paper, and then spending decades and God knows how much money developing an infrastructure, which sort of laid out a pathway to Thatcher and Reagan. And they didn't just sort of come and institute their politics. They identified their enemy, the thing they wanted to kick back against, and from that counterpoint, they sort of started attempting to appeal to people's dissatisfaction and grievances, and articulating the solution in a specific way, and eroding the common sense that I suppose, I mean, I'm sure it can be defined in a number of ways, but just one way for ease is like in social democracy, a common sense of solidarity, like people accepting of the welfare state, and pinning a high value on that. And when they came along, they began a cultural process of eroding that common sense and instituting another one, which, instead of sort of punching upwards to ensure that the large majority of a populace was taken care of by the state, to start punching downwards, and to breed a sense or a will for a reduced state, and to free the individual from having the burden of the state, or the burden that the state was putting on them to take care of everyone else below them, to free the individual from that so that they could achieve their full potential in a very particular type of liberal freedom. And obviously that took time and effort, and 100 years later, 100 years later, I suppose we're sort of coming out of that moment and coming out of that common sense, and we're seeing new common senses and new cultural programs to attempt to reinstitute a different type or a different form of common sense. But in the last 30 years, that being the neoliberal period, with this common sense fully instituted, and obviously it still comes to bear. People are still not entirely accepting of the welfare state. We're far away from a general state of solidarity, social solidarity. Particularly now, it's sort of intensifying, I guess, with anti-immigration and anti-Islam movements, and there's a chance that could be the next sort of paradigm, which is terrifying. Because once the totality that neoliberalism presented successfully for itself is peeled away at the edges, the next blanket, the next sort of apparent totality that could be instituted is a disgusting and horrible anti sort of marginal situation. And I suppose, I mean, that's I mean, it used to be sort of 10 years ago, what we would want to sort of kick back against was neoliberalism, but right now it's the sort of flashpoint or the possibility of the opportunity of the peeling away of neoliberalism being articulated by the far right is our sort of imminent target and the point of these chats, to try to figure out how to insert ourselves in a process that that sort of helps make sure that that doesn't happen, and not by voting in Hillary Clinton or Keir Starmer.